Sanskar, are we about ready to start?
Yes, sir, you can start the.
Okay, can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, I'm not getting the same view, so let me ask, are you all seeing the PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, the presentation is.
Okay, all right. Well, let's get going. Good evening to you all. I'm really thrilled that so many teams showed up for this. This is we've got some vital information for you, but then any change in the judging criteria is a sort of a difficult thing. And so the more people we get in on the initiation of that, the fewer mistakes and the least trouble we'll have in the changeover. We're talking about Formula Barat 2024. Presentation of information to the teams, and what this is a new scoring card for the CRM event, the Concepts, Resources, and Management event. I'm Peter Jones. I'm the design event co-lead for combustion vehicles, though electric vehicles will be sharing the same CRM event scorecard. Okay, why are we doing this? Every Formula car has a goal. Every Formula competition has a goal. And our competition goal at the moment is to assess and reward excellence in engineering design. So contrary to what you might believe, we're not persecuting you by making you turn in all this design stuff. We're actually trying to encourage you to become better engineers, apply better logic, better science to the production of a better race car to improve everything in that chain. All right, so as we go into the changes that we're making, we've got some assumptions that I want to present to you. And the first, as I said, is that all engineering design is based on goals. Formula Barat has always been very good about emphasizing goals, better than most of the formula competitions. In fact, probably better than all the other formula competitions. So we are the goal-driven competition. As a judging staff, we've run into problems comparing, say, one team who has designed to win the competition and come a little bit short against another team who has stated that their goal is to have a mediocre car and done exactly that, created a mediocre car. How does one score one of those two teams higher than the other? And so to resolve this difficulty, we are restating the assumption to the goals of your design, and that's that all Formula Barat teams will have the same goal, and that goal is to design a car which will win Formula Barat. We're going to back off on that a little bit because we recognize that you're all working against different constraints of fabrication space, of money, of team size, of team experience. All sorts of things are keeping winning from being a serious possibility. And we're going to call those things that keep you from doing that constraints. So if you're working under constraints, we'll need you to quantify those constraints and demonstrate why it is that you're not able to make that top goal. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have determined that in order to win the acceleration event, you are going to have to complete the course in less than 4 seconds. Let's say that because of the team's limitation in acquisition of an ECU, you're unable to make the car perform any better than 5 seconds. Okay, well, that limitation would be a constraint. And so therefore, the rest of the car would be designed for that 5-second constraint instead of for the 4-second winning. So again, I'm trying to say that what we would like to see in design is a set of goals that demonstrate that you're designing the best car that you can, and you understand why you couldn't design better. Okay, the last bullet point there is that a lot of teams are working on development designs where you're using last year's car or even older than that as a basis and going forward. And that is fine. This is common throughout the Formula student world. It's common throughout engineering, where most engineering design does tend to be development design. And that's going to be fine in Formula Barat as long as you justify everything that you're using. I'll give you an example again. We had a team last year who had a pretty well-developed design, determined that the best thing that they could do to improve that design would be to change wheel size, which they did. And their entire vehicle engineering design report dealt with the change of the wheel size. So we were essentially comparing a team that had designed new corners against all the other teams who had designed a new car. And the basis for comparison becomes difficult. The fix for that is if you're going to use an old design, that's fine, but it's similar to as if you had chosen to use a purchased damper or a purchased steering rack, where you have to justify your choice to buy as opposed to the choice to build. So use an old concept, that's fine, but you're still responsible for where that old concept came from. Okay, these are a new set of assumptions that we've been using a bit in the past, but now we're stating these explicitly. Okay, here is the new score sheet. Don't feel like you need to absorb this because we're going to go over this whole thing in detail, but I just want to show you what we're dealing with. Notice that there's a course set of criteria here: concept, resources, and management. And then each one of these is broken down. So for instance, under each of the course things, we have total points for the course idea, a concept for what's going on under that course idea. And then in the breakdown, we get a little bit more specific as to the things that we're scoring for and the breakdown in points for each of those subcategories. Okay, we'll come back to this. All right, let's just take that score sheet and look at the course level of concepts, resources, management, and report. The concept is the concept of the vehicle. Be very careful. We're talking about a vehicle here. We're not talking about the team. We're talking about what the team created, which is the vehicle. Resources applied by the team to design, build, and race the vehicle. What have you got? How have you used them? Management. How have you organized those resources in order to accomplish that concept? And we'll need a clear explanation of all that. So we're putting down 10% of the score on the report itself. What we're trying to do is get you to accept that your objective is to create a proposal to create success in Formula Barat. Okay, now let's look at, let's take one by one the course ideas. Let's look at the concept of the vehicle. We're scoring 30 points for this. If we look at this overall, what it said on the scorecard that you couldn't see, you didn't have time to read, we'll come back and look at that later, is develop an actionable competition and design strategy, which demonstrates depth of understanding. I'm missing the O over here behind one of my windows. The race car engineering domain, and indicates probable Formula Barat success. So we're looking for that overall design philosophy. What that means is which design concepts will give you the most points. Notice that this is plural, concepts. We're looking for trade-offs of why this car, why not that car, why a full aero, why any aero at all, why 10-inch wheels, why not 13-inch wheels, how many, what sort of an engine should you apply? I read a design report, you won't believe this, last competition, the team had left a room in their car for ballast. Seriously, they were going to put 20 kilograms of ballast in their car. And this was part of their concept. I would say it was mistaken, but that was something that they decided on a conceptual level. How do you know? How do you know that the concepts that you have determined are likely to give a favorable number of points? How do you know that they're good concepts instead of just something different to satisfy the judges? Okay, next, working within the team constraints. With a concept, how can you detail, design, fabricate, and develop that to get the most from that? So this is an idea, this is the development of an idea, the potential development of an idea, and how do you know that you can do that? And then there's a selection process. So this should look very familiar to those of you that have studied design methodology. where you're producing alternative designs, you're assessing the potential of alternative designs, and then making a quantitative selection of the one that you're going to go forward into detailed design, fabrication, and development. So we're asking you why this car. So again, going back to the teams that are using an old concept, we need this redone every year to demonstrate that you're working on the correct overall concept, or at least the one that you can best justify. Okay, so that's the concept idea. As we start breaking that down in the concept, there are 3 sections. You may remember that from the scorecard: goals, the concept itself, and the tools used to back that up. The things in quotes are the things that are from the scorecard. Correlate competition points with vehicle performance. Okay, so we see a lot of teams tell us what place they'd like to be, but they don't tell us how fast they're going to have to go in order to place at that particular spot. So it's fine to say we want to win acceleration, but if you're not going to tell us what that means in terms of force and speed and time, then that's just design for hope instead of design for actual performance. Correlate vehicle performance with vehicle characteristics. Okay, so this is, if I've said that my goal is a 4-second acceleration, well, what does that mean in terms of mass, in terms of thrust, in terms of squat and dive, in terms of aerodynamic drag? So now we're asking to take the design characteristics of the vehicle, tie it to the performance that you want, where the performance has already been tied to the points that you're going to need. Now, in addition to that, we're asking for a diversity of achievable vehicle concepts. So again, we haven't let go of that idea that there are lots of ways to do this, arguably an infinite number of ways to design a successful Formula Barat car. And we'd like to know how you sifted through those concepts in order to identify the most promising one to go forward with. Okay, impact of team constraints on vehicle performance. We're getting back to that acceleration example. If you're just never going to make that 4-second acceleration because of, we'd like to know what the of refers to and why you know that that's such a limiter. We'd also like to know measures to reduce impact of constraints. Do you have to be limited to 5 seconds because of that ECU that you've got to have? Is there some way around that? Can you create a better solution with a different approach? And then we'd like to know what your final overall vehicle goals are that are consistent with the points that you need to make, the performance that you're going to need to accomplish in order to get the points, the characteristics that you'll have to build into the car in order to get that performance, and the constraints that keep the characteristics from providing even higher performance. Okay, this is the goals section. The design concept section, worth 10 points by itself, is the presentation of your concept. This is the selection process, selection and final goals. This is the concept that results from your goals. Okay, and here we want a clear picture of what it is that you're trying to do. So the meaning of a design concept is not the complete design, not the detailed design. That hasn't happened yet. This is just the CRM stage. But at this stage, you should be able to give specifications for each of the systems in the car, specifications for the power plant, specifications for the chassis, specifications for the suspension, specifications for aero if you've got that, for the concept that you've already selected. So for that selected concept, what are the next layer of engineering requirements as we go through a multi-layer design? And we'll need to see a whole vehicle arrangement, that's drawings, for the selected concept. This looks like a coarse version of your 3-view drawings. It's not the completed 3-view drawings with the great detail breakouts because you haven't done those yet. But this is the outline of that arrangement, showing where the major components are, showing the major dimensions, showing the major features of the design. Your design concept with its system specifications and arrangement needs to be something that can actually happen. And we'd like you to demonstrate for us that that is something that can take place. Notice in all of this, you're not really getting a checklist. A lot of the design responses that we get are checklists based on the score sheet, and we're actually going to a fair amount of effort to keep you from doing that. We'd like to know what process you followed, and we'd like to know that you followed a good process. Part of following a good process involves the selection of that process itself, which is your responsibility, and we'd like to hear about that. Okay, and under concept breakdown, 10 points for the tools that you're using. So for instance, if you're using shape generation FEA, then we'd like to know how that works and how you applied it. If you're using CFD and yaw and roll, we'd like to know how you where that tool came from, how you're operating it, and what you're getting out of it. We'd like to know that you understand what the tool does. We'd like to know that you understand how to use it. We'd like to see, as you know, an awful lot of experiment involved, because numerical idealizations are just exactly that. They're just numerical and they're just idealizations. They'll help you, point you in the right direction, but experiment shows you what the physical world is actually doing for you. We'd like to know that you understand the correlations between points, performance, and characteristics, as we already set up here under goals. And we'd like to hear something about the management of the design process. We'd like to know what really happens and how you really know that your process is going to work. All very vague in general under concept, as concepts are. So we're asking for the truth of how you designed excellence for Formula Barat. Okay, let's go to the next item, which is resources. We've done concept. Let's take a look at resources, those that are applied by the team to design, build, and race. Okay, looking at that as an overall idea, for each of the specific resources, we've got several types of resources. We'd like to know how you know what you need, how you know how many people you need, how you know how much money you need, how you know how much shop space that you need. Probably this is something that should have gone into the selection of your concept in the first place. So these bullets are not independent of each other. How are you going to find these resources? We're talking about team building here. We're talking about finding shop space. We're talking about raising money, fundraising, your business function, organizing. How will you operate these resources to achieve the concept? So once you've got this stuff, how can you make it happen? It's very easy to get no output from a good set of resources. How will you keep that from happening? It's easy for resources to degrade over time. People get used up, machines get worn out, sponsors get tired of working with you. How are you going to keep that from happening? Do you have a process for that? And how can you improve the level of resources? How can you continue to educate your team members so that they're better at designing successful race cars? Okay, let's break down the resources scoring. And we've got 3 different types of resources that we're looking at in particular. Of course, there are resources that fall within these, in between the cracks, and we'll consider those as well, but this is how we're going to have to allocate the points. So 10 points for human resources. We've got a bunch of human resources. There's the team itself. Those are the people on your team. There's also the people that work with you, partners, shall we say. Friends, maybe other students who aren't really on the team, the institution itself. What sort of help are you getting from them, and how do you keep from getting that? Vendors have to remain sustainable in order to be of continued benefit to you. Financial resources, that's money. We're asking you for a whole project budget on a planning level. This is not your cost report. Your cost report is detailed design. This is conceptual design. So we're asking for a conceptual level project budget. Everybody asks, how long should that be? About a page. Sources. So where is this budget going to come from? Again, we're not asking for money in the bank already, because since it's an ongoing full year project, you don't have that. but we'd like to know what you can reasonably, solidly plan on having to accomplish this whole project budget. And obviously there has to be a match between these. We'd also like you to understand what happens if there isn't a match between those. Risk and flexibility asks what might go wrong? What are the identifiable failure points in your budget versus sources equilibrium? And what do you do if that happens? Do you already understand how you can reduce the scope of the project if necessary? Do you already understand how you could improve the project if more resources become available? Manufacturing is another resource. This also comes in varieties. In-house is mostly what you're working on. You're doing most of the work yourselves. So how can you assure yourselves that you have the resources that it will take to actually accomplish your concept? In kind, that's what sponsors can do for you. Say someone that can do some welding for you, someone that can do some machining for you. Of course, then that becomes a friend that you have to make sustainable and keep up. Vendors, it's easy to generate the money and go out and buy something, but how do you know that what you're getting is what you need? And you're building something very specific here, and an off-the-shelf part often will not solve your problem. It may or may not. That's also part of design. So that's the breakdown on resources. Let's go and look at the third third course topic, which is management. Looking at management overall, we're asking for a management plan. This is far beyond a team organization chart. Okay, so for each management topic, and we've got several below, we'd like to know what you do to fill that in. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and look. We've got tasks, team, and community. So define and populate would mean, do you have a list of tasks? Folks, this is the Gantt chart. Do you have a full Gantt chart? For every item on the Gantt chart, for every part of the team, have you worked through the idea of managing that for the entire season, all the way from now to a year from now? So it's a full process. You've heard several of the judges say to you that a formula team has to be three things over its life. It has to be a design team and organized as a design team. It has to have a design freeze so that that design team ends and it becomes a manufacturing team. Manufacturing team has a different organization. The manufacturing team has to come to an end. There has to be a rollout date because that manufacturing team then disbands, it's done its job, and it turns into a race team, which is design, develop, which is development, tuning, and training, and getting ready to go to race. So it's three different teams already over the course of a year. So as you look at your entire season, your organization needs to reflect that, and it may actually change organizations as it goes through the year. Measure progress for a management topic. So a management system is the same as a mechanical design. You put forth concepts, detail them, operate them, and then take feedback from them and ask, did you actually accomplish your goals? Is your management process working, and how do you know that? Feedback and evaluation means, hey, how are you finding that out, and could you make the management process work better? Okay, so let's break down management, already kind of a fuzzy subject. So let's try and add a little definition to that. Again, tasks. What is it that you're going to do? Think of this as the line items, the rows on a Gantt chart. What is each task? What is it that you're going to do? What has to happen before that task can start? So could we start it tomorrow, or do we have to wait until two other tasks have been completed? What is the tangible result? Okay, careful on tangible. Let's say that suspension design is a task, and you write down that the tangible result is that the suspension design is finished. That doesn't really help you. How do you know that that task is done? And the easiest way to do that is to make the result tangible. So in this case, it would be a list of the drawings and material specifications for the suspension. So those specific results are in hand. Once you've said what it is that demonstrates the task is done, it makes it easier to create a process that will bring those tangible results to fruition. Okay, costs. What does it cost you to create that suspension design? Is it in terms of people, human resources, in terms of money, in terms of time? There are a lot of resources involved here, and they all have to balance. Scheduling, how does each task fit with every other task in a feasible order that gets you to design freeze in time to start building? And tracking, how do you keep up with the progress you've made? This is always a kind of a tough one, and you can get into a lot of background material that will help you on tracking a design process. Once you have this as a tool for your task list, then there are sources that you can use to help you with tracking that task list. Okay, next resource is the team itself.
Hello. So I actually managed to got muted. Because
Yeah. Okay, did we miss much?
from my side.
Okay, did we get to the point where I started talking about this? I need someone to tell me where we ran into that problem.
It was around 4 5 seconds.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead on team. For the team, for management of the team, we're asking how is the team organized to accomplish each of these tasks? We've got a lot of tasks. We've got a team which is organized to complete the task. How does the team operate? So once the team is into an organization structure, how does that organization structure operate? So we want to see more than just the org chart. We want to see what goes on within that org chart, within the lines between one box and another box. Communication. How do the tasks inform each other? Not how do the people inform each other, how do the tasks inform each other? Coordination, how are the task needs met by other tasks? And motivation. This is something that an awful lot of formula teams struggle with, the idea of keeping that team or human resource running, keeping people informed and enthused and functioning, that the teams that accomplish this are successful, the teams that do not fall apart. I would like to know if you've got a plan for that. Okay, beyond the team, you're operating in a wider world, in the world of community. Your community includes the institution that you're interacting with, keeping them happy, keeping from catching fire to your shop, keeping the support money flowing in, whatever you need from your institution, how does that keep happening? Sponsors is the same ideal. You have a partnership with them. How are you holding up your end of that? Vendors, a little easier to keep in touch with because they're in business, but still, sustainability, could you go back and order the same thing next month if the part that you just bought from them broke? Do you have a sustainable relationship with your community of vendors? Okay. All right, and lastly, we've got the report to explain it all. It's the old engineering problem of if you've got a great engineer but can't explain it to the other engineers, then did you actually have a great engineer? And the answer is, well, nobody knows. So if we're going to give you points, we're going to have to see a nice report telling us why we should give you points. Okay, and breaking that down, overall, this is what you're trying to do, and this is what's written on the score sheet. Clear. Try not to confuse us. We're reading a lot of design reports. We need to be able to understand what you're talking about. Concise. Please don't bury us under detail. We have a habit of forgetting what we read 30 pages ago. Understandable. Obviously, keep it to the essential points. We're applying the 80-20 principle here. Breaking the report down, this is what we'd like. We'd like the overall project, and just to demonstrate how important it is to make your concept clear to us, half of the points go for telling us what your concept is, how it works, and how you know that it's going to work that way. That's kind of the key for a successful CRM. Okay, so this is what we saw before. Here's that whole score sheet gathered together in one place. And Sanskar, surely this is going to be posted somewhere on the Formula Bharat site.
Yes, yes.
Okay, very
It
good.
will be shared.
Okay, you got to appreciate the organization here, because I've been developing this score sheet and I've been bombarding Sanskar with different versions as late as this morning. So we're still sort of evolving this, and probably next year's will look a little different. But I think we're at the final. This is what we're going to go with this year. Structure of this again, as we've got different course categories broken down into fine categories. We've got the points for the course added up to by the points of the fine. We've got a general definition of each course category, and we've got some suggestions of the scope of each one of the breakdown breakdown items. So for instance, if we look at resources, each resource should go through specifying, acquiring, organizing, maintaining, and enhancing. And then we're looking at those applied to these resources, those applied to these resources, and those applied to these resources here. Okay, so in just a sec, well, we're at the end of my prepared remarks, but there's one thing more I wanted to give you a brief preview to, and then we'll go back to just general questioning. This was the CRM score sheet. There's also a VED score sheet that's brand new. It's a little bit less of a change than the CRM. Here it is. This will be, if it's not posted already, it'll be posted soon. This is ready to go. We'll be having a seminar like this one, or a presentation like this one, early in September, to help you out with just exactly what the expectations are for this score sheet. We won't discuss this today, but we'll come back and hit this a month from now, and it'll be available for you to look at. Okay, so going back to the CRM scorecard, I think at this point we can just open things up for questions.
Hello teams, if you all have any questions, you all can unmute yourself and ask your question, or
Yeah.
post the query via the chat.
Go ahead, open field. Well, and of course, do understand if you've got questions as time goes on, then send them to the tech organization, send them to the organizers. They'll send them to the appropriate person to answer the question, and we'll see if we can get your concern solved. Sanskar, I think they had a very, very hard week, and this is just, they don't have any inquisitiveness left.
I guess there's no questions for now.
Okay, all
In
right.
case they have any queries, we'll reach out to them when they mail us.
Okay, well, I'm gonna, Sanskar, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So thanks a lot for, yeah, so there's the question. Can you please explain the tools and the concept?
Okay, let me scroll down to, I guess that's on the chat. The tools under the concept. Okay, let me go back to sharing screen again. Concept tools. Okay, so the question is to explain the tools. Just to give you some example, if I were to evaluate a concept, then I might use, for instance, a lap simulation. I might use something like Optimum Lap. I might use for my car model within that within Optimum Lap a bicycle model, or I might use a point mass model, or I might use a four-wheel model. So as we look at clarity, depth, and utility of that computational process, then we'd like to know, well, what's your lap simulator? What's the car model that you're using in your lap simulator? Can you explain to us how you derived that car model? How you know what it will do for you that's good, how you know what it's leaving out, and how your analysis might be have a wider deviation as a result of that. So we're asking to understand what tools you're using. We're not telling you you have to use this tool because this is the best and everything is bad. We're saying, do you understand the tool that you have and its strengths and its limitations? Okay, I hope that helped with the question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, have we got any other questions, folks?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So the CRM Q&A event, will there be any presentation from our side, or will it be an entire Q&A from the judges?
Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
That would be Q&A based on the report that you have shared.
Okay, so will not be. So we need not present anything initially.
Right. This is just
That
CRM
depends.
report. This isn't on-site design judging. This is just a CRM that you submit in advance.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, sir.
And this is I would like to tell you this is an event that's unique to Formula Bharat. No other Formula student competition does this. It's something that we developed to, one, is a good idea, and two, to improve our field. And I'd have to say that the feeling among the organizers is that this has had an impact, and we're seeing a very good level of engineering design from the Formula Bharat teams. And we hope that the CRM event is contributing to that. That's what it's designed to do. And I can tell you that after having done both of the Michigan competitions earlier this summer, and I talked to a lot of teams that I wished had your experience in competing in the CRM event, because it would have made them much better. Well, Sanskar, you want to just let it go?
Yeah, there's one more question in the chat. Should I read it out? Yeah. Should I read the question?
Oh, sorry. Great. Sorry, I was sharing screen, and so I couldn't see the chat bar. Let's see. Human resources section regarding. Okay. This is actually a really good question, because it reveals that a lot of the parts of the score sheet are not independent of each other. So a lot of them deal with a slightly different view of the same thing. So for instance, human resources section, let me get to that. There we go. How does it differ from management? Okay, well, to answer your question, hopefully directly, resources are having the resources, and management is organizing the resources. And there's a difference between resource and resource management. Resources is mostly about forecasting the need and acquiring the tools, and management is more about operating the tools in order to be effective and to understand your evolving requirement for more or different resources. I hope that answers your question. Now, on all of these, remember that this is not a checklist. This is a series of topics. This is a series of questions that the judges are asking of you. So since you know this already, it's a series of questions that you know that you're going to have to respond to. Every car is different. Every team is different. Every design process is different. What we're trying to figure out is how to discover the actual nature of your design process and how to demonstrate your design process in its best light. We've found that using a score sheet that looks like a checklist results in a lot of responses that don't really have anything to do with the design of the car. We'd like to know what you really did, and we'd like to give you an opportunity to shine where you really have accomplished something. Okay.
I guess there are no more questions.
Sure.
Were you saying something like beyond this? I was asking, were you saying something like?
Well, I was just going to comment that you know, the questions are coming out very slowly as people look at the scorecard and start to imagine the implications, and that will happen. So again, I think we can invite you to put your questions up to the Formula Barrad organization. Certainly welcome to ask me directly, and we'll get an answer out to you. And if the answer is general to everybody, we'll make sure that everybody has that answer as well. So as you spend some time thinking about this and mulling this over, you're going to have more questions, more detailed questions, and we will certainly do our best to address those promptly. So unless somebody's thought of something right now, we might go ahead and stop the presentation.
Actually, the first version of the CRM rubric has been shared with the team. The updated has not been shared yet.
Okay, all right. Well, that's my fault for changing it after the initial sharing. But let me promise everybody that the changes that were made between the initial posting and the final version are very minor and just involve wording, just trying to make it a little bit more clear as to what it is that we're really hoping that you will show us.
I think there are no more questions. If it's all right, I think we can end the session.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for hosting the session.
Okay. Teams, thank you for showing up this evening. Thank you for giving up the first part of your weekend, and on short notice, thank you for gathering.
Thank you everyone for joining. We hope you all have a great weekend. Thank you for hosting this session, sir.
My pleasure.